Okay, yes. So we're on, what topic is this? Yes, Testament base. Just to, we're going to come back a little bit. The more goes on to a new question now, but just to go back, we had a focus yesterday about the father being able to do two processes to his daughter. Thank you. Thank you. One is that he's able to marry her off. One is that he's able to sell her for a shifra. And the question was if he could do one after another. So the Gemara talked about he cannot marry her twice. Oh, he said, I'm sorry. He says he could. He can. He can betroth her twice. That was what it said. Ishus Bishona. And then the question was about Shifros and Ishus.
You can do that.
So there's machlokas. We had altogether three shittas that more put down. One says the pasuk. It all goes around the pasuk with Vigdo Ba. And as Avnissan pointed out yesterday, the first round of the pasuk is talking about that the master, once the master betrayed her by not marrying her, so then he cannot sell her again, cannot sell it to somebody else, to forward the sale to somebody else. That's first round of the pasuk. But the Gemara starts is talking about the father. The father, once he betrayed her, that's the question. Does it mean betrayal or does it mean something about a beggar? The word vigdo doesn't mean beggar or doesn't mean bagad, clothing or betrayal. And even though I think the pasuk
says clothing.
This is clothing, which means that the one says that it means Kiddushin. It means Kiddushin, that he betrothed her to somebody, and then once he did that, he cannot sell her anymore. He cannot sell her once he betrothed her. So if he betrothed her to somebody and she got divorced, he cannot sell her anymore. That's Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Lezer said that the Vigdo means Boged, and Boged means by selling her. He betrayed her by selling her. So once he sold her, he cannot sell her again. And each one, the Gemara goes, each one holds the other thing is not true. That according to Rabbi Kiva, he'd be able to sell her for a shifra 2 times. According to Rabbi Eliezer, he'd be able to. Now that everyone knows he can marry her twice. That's not the person only talks about selling her a second time. He cannot sell her once he was bogey, once he was base gimel dalet. Once he was base gimel dalet, he cannot sell her. So what is it saying? Either it's saying once he sold her, he cannot sell her, or one that's bogeyed, or beged, once he betrothed her, he cannot sell her. Each one holds that this he cannot, but the other thing he could. And Rav Shimon holds both of them. That he cannot anymore say he cannot sell her after selling her, he cannot sell her after betrothing her. That was yesterday's Gemara. Holds that he cannot sell her after having betrothed her to somebody, and he also cannot sell her after selling her.
Because he goes by both.
Right.
Uh-huh.
That was yesterday's
How
Gemara.
old Maisa? We don't know yet.
No, it says here Shifra. The Shifra was shown in it.
He could marry her twice. He could sell her. The shifchus for Shona
Oh,
means he
the
goes.
mocher, the first
shifchus for Shona
two,
means not.
yes.
Right.
Right.
The third one for the first 3 years.
The first 3, yes.
No?
Yeah.
No, the shifchus issues. That according to Agmara, that goes according to Rabbi Akiva. That the pasuk is talking about beged. Beged, the Gemara translates to mean that he betrothed her. I'm not clear why beged, as the Gemara is going to talk later on. The Gemara is going to say later on why the word beged might mean Kiddushin, that he married her. Okay, so now we're starting from a different. So that really only has the supplier after he Nesuin, not by Kiddushin. That's going to be the problem.
Oh.
That usually, and also
Right.
Paros Taliso. Usually, I would think Paros Taliso means that he marries her. That's like by Rus and Boaz. That's a term that's usually used by the Nesuin, not by the Kiddushin, by the actual marriage, the consummation of the marriage. So we'll see the Gemara today. So we're on Yud Chesem with base. We didn't start. We just were backtracking a little bit yesterday. If you're up to the Daf Yomi, we're far behind. We're 10 plus behind. Okay, Boy Rabba. Yud Chesem with base about 5 lines down. Boy Rabba. Bar Avrohom. Yud, the Suinosa or Erusinosa. Yud is now talking about this halacha that when someone buys a maidservant, a Jewish maidservant who's a ketana, so he has the option of marrying her. He can option up to himself to marry her or a son to marry her. And here it's going to talk about that. This is called Yud. The word Yud is interesting. Nowadays in Hebrew, the word Yud is like designated. And you go to the Tachanam Merkazit, there's a Yad. The Yad is the destination. And that's how they use the word nowadays. Ya'id something means to designate something. But here, a little bit in the Sugya, does seem that it's used as the word as actually marrying her. The way that he marries the Shifra maybe who was designated for him, but the word yud in the Gemara is going to be called the actual taking her. So the question is yud. This way that a man takes his maidservant, does it accomplish Nesuin Osa or Erisin Osa? Does it accomplish even Nesuin Osa? Only way of Erisin.
Doesn't designation work here?
I'm not sure because we're not talking about
Designation for marriage or designation?
he's really it's taking her. But he does yud. He actually takes her. So what is he taking her? So like every marriage is two stages. One is Kiddushin, one is Nesuin. So here Rashi tells us what the Gemara is going to say in a while. That he says, "Harei at b'yued dasli what?"
Oh, it's not really designation. It's more like
He's actually taking her. He's actually taking her.
He's modern Hebrew. What does it do?
Designation. Designation means I'm putting it
Somebody
aside.
says, like, what's your purpose in life?
What's your destination in life? They're going to say. What is your yad? It means what's your destination? Where do you want to get to?
Yeah.
Where do you want to get to?
I say here you're not saying it's where you want to get. You're saying it means you got there.
Right. This is the way. This is the way that he takes her. So if you look in Rashi, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines before it spreads. Maybe I'll try to do it in stay here.
Kilometer.
It's not doing so well for me, but
Harei at
Yehudali
you are designated.
Miknosaya. So he says you are hereby, let's call it married to me. I think the Gemara is going to say he also could use the word designate Mekudeshesli. That's the side point. With what does he have to give her? Does he give her something? So usually you give a tabazu, you give a ring, you give money, shabafuta. Here it says with the money that I paid for you already, which is Gemara is going to go into that. That it says here he doesn't have to give her money now. He says I gave money already. The money that I gave for your purchase. Now you should be married to me with that money.
Because she was a slave.
Right. So then when I bought you already. It's included in the package already that I could marry if I want. So now I'm saying that I want the marriage. So you are hereby.
It was in the Havamin. It was in the contract.
It was in the
contract
contract that he could marry her.
That he can marry.
So so this sounds like Kiddushin. Islam sounds like Kiddushin. Like there's money involved, the money that I gave already, and you are hereby married to me. So I would say, like I said, any Kiddushin that's just only the first stage, and it's not yet Nesuin. Nesuin means that he takes her into his house, or here she's in his house, she's a maidservant, but he takes her into his house for the purpose of being married. So that's called the second stage, which is Nesuin. So I would think that this only accomplished the first stage. But Rabbi Baruch has a question. He wants to know, maybe Yud already accomplishes Nesuin also. Yud, Nesuin also, or Erisin also? Does Yud accomplish Nesuin, or does it only accomplish Erisin? The same question, just to point out, just so I had a similar Gemara, it's not the same subject. We had a question, there's three kinds of Kiddushin. There's Kesef Shtar Bia. So Kesef Shtar is surely only the Kiddushin, and he asked her, then do Nesuin, bring her into his home. But Bia, Kiddushin Bia, the question, if Kiddushin Bia accomplishes already Nesuin, it's 2 in 1, even though she's going to go back to her father's home until they get ready to live together. Maybe the fact that he did Bia, maybe that's already Nesuin. Maybe it's just considered Nesuin. We had that before on Daf Yud, I think it was, the Gemara question
She's
about.
in the master's home, where she's not going back to the father's
She was not home. She was staying in his home as a maidservant. Now she's going to be married to him. So does he have to do an act of Nesuin to say that now you're coming into my home for Nesuin? Either he takes her.
I think so. I think it's a quicker transaction.
I'm not following what you think.
She's in the makom. She's already in the makom.
She wasn't in the makom of Nesuin. She was there as a maidservant. So the question is,
he's saying, now I want to marry you with the money I gave you.
So that's
There's already
Kiddushin.
in Gali Udas that he wants as a wife now. So it should be a.
The question is that you need another stage called Nesuin, that he has to take her as a Nesuin, whatever the chuppah.
I understand. Why does she have to leave the house?
I didn't say leave the house. I didn't say leave the house.
Witnesses.
I didn't say to leave the house. The point is that he has to do an act of Nesuin. You want to say that he takes her into a more private room, that this is into his room. So that's called Nesuin. The question is if the Yud accomplishes Nesuin or only accomplishes Eris, and Avet Mekudeshesli with the money that. Okay, so that sounds like Kiddushin.
Does everybody agree that he has to do something?
He has to do, well, she's also a maidservant. He has to do Yud, whatever that means. Rashi tells us Yud. We can jump to where Rashi's getting it from. It's going to be the next page that he tells whatever he's going to say. Yeah, it has to be that she's still, if once she's a Nara, then she left. She's not anymore maidservant. She says, time's up. Once she gets 12 years old, that's
she has to do something or else she's not married.
Right. She's a maidservant until she does Yud. And now we did Yud. So now she's married. But there are two stages of marriage. There's Kiddushin and Nesuin. That's what the Gemara wants to know. Which one does it accomplish? Nafkibino, the Tamila, Lapin of the Rail. Whenever the Gemara talks about this difference, the Gemara tells you what does it what's the difference if she's only the first stage of marriage or the second one? The Gemara tells you a few nafkaminas. One is the Yarsha. If she dies, is he considered, does he inherit her? And Arusa, he doesn't inherit, only after she's in the sewer. Also, if he's a Kohen and she dies, so he's not allowed to be matam with her, only if she's in the sewer. If she's an Arusa, so then they're not married enough that the Kohen should be able to be matam with his wife. Up in the Darel, that while she's in Arusa, then the father can.
The husband has no right.
The husband cannot be made for alone. He needs this a joint
With the
both of them together with the father. And while she's in a rusa, when she's in a sewer, then the husband's on his own.
Mhm.
So that 3.5 kaminas if she's a rusa or in a sewer. Back to the question: does the year accomplish in the sewer or only erison? Tashma. So we go back to the top of the page, and the first line of the page: Tashma bevigdo ba. That's the pasuk. That he may not sell her after he was bagad, beged, whatever that means. And what a question what it means. So Bekiva says that the big lashon of beged, and he says, once the husband spread his garment over her, the father is not allowed to sell her anymore. So we had this yesterday, and this is Rabbi Kiva that says there's no shifcha sachar ishus.
Here is the beggar. What's how?
Yeah, we're just quoting. That's a what do you call it? Cut and paste, copy and paste. This was the bottom words. This was it. We had a great before. The big dova, Chivan, top line. Chivan Shapir Salis. Allah Shabbat show them off, and then Rabbi Kiva. So we're quoting Rabbi Kiva. We're saying over what Rabbi Kiva said. And yesterday we said this is where he learns out. There's no shifchus achar ishus, that he's not allowed to sell her once she was given for marriage. So the Gemara wants to open up a window on this and figure it out. Now the word Yehuda Miyadla, Rashi does both say that it's a little bit loose terminology. It really means these words Yehuda Miyadla means to be could be Mekadesher. He could marry her to somebody else. It just says he cannot sell her, but the father could marry her off.
You couldn't sell her.
The father once the husband did Piras Tali. No, that we don't know yet.
Oh,
he did Piras Tali. So whatever that means. Let's try to highlight it. Keep it. It says Piras Tali.
You could still marry her off to somebody else.
Right.
The
The father could marry her off to somebody else.
Why he died?
No.
Why doesn't he marry? Why he already Spirit study Torah there?
And then he divorced her.
Oh, he divorced.
The whole question of marrying again is only going to be if she got divorced. So here it says if a husband did Piras Taliso, we're going to try to figure out what Piras Taliso means. So then the father is not allowed to sell her anymore. That's the pasuk. He cannot sell her to somebody else once who's he? The father cannot sell her once the husband Piras Taliso. It says only cannot sell her, but he would be able to marry her off. He's still the father as far as he has jurisdiction over her in order to do other things, to marry her off. What does the Gemara want with this? The Gemara is taking in the first, when the Gemara sees this price, it says Piras Taliso, the Gemara thinks that it means Yiyud. Spread over the talis. Who spread over the talis? So the Gemara thinks it means the master that had bought her had done Yiyud, and for some reason the Gemara is happy that Piras Taliso means that. Piras Taliso means Yiyud, not that he did the suin, not that he took her into his room. He just said, "Harei you edesli b'kesef miknasayit." We're hereby
You're calling it
Yiyud. We're calling it Yiyud. We don't know. That's the question. That's what we're talking about. It's Yiyud Erison. What?
In other words, if it's Nisuin.
The question was: is Yiyud going to be Nisuin or only Erison? Does Yiyud accomplish? Of course, there's always going to be.
If you say it's Nisuin, isn't that what we're up to?
Yeah, but I always go back. You have to get used to my style for already 3.5 years.
Yeah,
That I first go. I go back and so then we go into the Gemara. You have to. If I just translate the words, I don't think you get any place. You have to first get the picture. I think maybe I'm wrong, but that's.
Excuse me.
The words
Excuse me.
What?
Didn't we have earlier that he has to make the decision like right before the end of the 12th year when he still was a puta left of the money?
The Gemara is going to talk about it at the bottom of the page, but does it have any? Does it affect our Gemara at this point?
Well, I mean, because that says he's being Mikhailish with the puta left, not with the money he gave when he bought her.
That's a machlokes. That's going to be an issue. That's
Okay.
the one's going to talk about it. But
Okay.
Rashi quotes for some. Rashi quotes when Rashi starts the sugya a couple lines before it spreads. Rashi told us, Rashi is going with the shita that with the money that she was bought with.
Okay,
There was
fine.
going to be a
Okay.
shita. Okay. So now what are we talking about? So the Gemara, for some reason, the Gemara sees Piras Tali, so the Gemara thinks that it doesn't just mean Kiddushin, regular Kiddushin of a man that was Mekadosh. It means the father betrothed his young daughter, and now he's not allowed to sell her anymore, as Rabbi Akiva says. The Gemara thinks that it means that it was a yud done, that the father had sold her, and the master had betrothed her, and not betrothed her, did yud her, keep the word yud, and then he divorced her, and now it says that the father cannot sell her anymore, but she's still under his jurisdiction, that he could marry her off to somebody else. That's what the Gemara thinks the Brisa says.
Obviously, she's still Katana.
Yes. The with the Suano, now the Gemara is taking over. The with the Suanosa, Chimid and Nisa, Shovein Levir Rishusba. On the side, you have to study. You didn't know if he had accomplished his Erison or even the Suan. The Gemara says, I'll show you that it only accomplished Erison. Because if it would have accomplished the Suan, then surely he cannot marry her off anymore, because that's the lacha. The father not only betrothed his daughter, but he even gave her to the chassan, and the chassan already did the Suan, then surely the father's off. If somebody married off his young daughter and there was Erison and Nisuin, and then the husband divorced her or died, the father's out of the picture. Once she had Nisuin, she doesn't. She's out of his jurisdiction. So that's a given. You know that. So
Everybody
now,
knows that way.
yes. Now it says a case of yiyud over here, and it sounds like after the master performed yiyud, the father would be able to marry her. She's not out of his jurisdiction of the father. And if he would divorce her, the father would be able to
Marry her.
give her off to marry somebody, right? Could betroth her to somebody again. So that means that the yiyud of the master did not accomplish Nisuin. The Gemara thinks that that's the proof. That's what the Gemara is bringing a proof from. Since it says Piras Talisa, which the Gemara thinks means yiyud, and it says that only stops the father from being able to sell her again, but it doesn't stop her from being able to marry her off again. That must mean that the yiyud only accomplished Nisuin because Erison, because if it would have accomplished Nisuin, he wouldn't be able to do that anymore. That's what the Gemara's proof was. No, Erison also. From here, you can prove that he had only accomplished Erison. So the Gemara is going to say, who told you Piras Taliso means yiyud? Maybe it means a stranger betrothed her. That's also called Piras Taliso. And that's how we learned yesterday even. We said, Ishus, Shiftos Acham Ishus, we learned the whole Gemara, we learned that Piras Taliso meant that someone did Kiddushin. Once the father gave over to one man, and then he divorced her, so the father cannot sell her anymore, but he could marry her off. Because it's a regular. Everyone holds that after Erison, the father is still in jurisdiction if she gets divorced. So that's what the Gemara is going to say. It's not talking about Yud, it's talking about Kiddushin from somebody else. And here, for some reason, now the Gemara is bothered. Piras Taliso means Kiddushin, means the Gemara feels like, now I have to explain. I'm being matchik, that Piras Taliso does not mean Yud, it means Kiddushin, regular Erison. And I'm not sure why Piras Taliso, the Gemara was happy that it means that the master took her as yiyud, not nisuin, just yiyud alone. That that's called Piras Taliso. What's Piras Taliso about that? There's no talis over there. There's no. You could call Piras Taliso. Sounds a little bit like nisuin, but the Gemara doesn't have a problem. That Piras Taliso just means that he did yiyud. That's fine. But now Rav Nachman wants to say it's regular Kiddushin, regular area. So now the Gemara has to explain how it fits into the words. So I'm fuzzy over here. I don't see why the Gemara was happier before than it is now. But now Nachman is going to come to explain how these words could mean Erison, regular Kiddushin. This is what the words, yes.
The Tashma, where did that come from? The whole thing that we said Piras Talisa, where did that come from?
There's a brisa that was quoted yesterday, the bottom line of the Amar Al, the Tanya, the big Doba, the top line of the base. That was Rabbi Akiva. So he brought it back in that brisa. Rabbi Akiva says that after he did yiyud, the master did yiyud, the father cannot sell her anymore. And the Gemara says, you see that he could, but he's lost jurisdiction. It's such he can't sell her, but he could marry her a second time.
Right.
So you see that she's still under his jurisdiction. You see Eris and Nosa. So the Gemara says, no, Piras Talisa doesn't refer to you. Piras Talisa means that the father married her off, betrothed her to somebody, and he divorced her, so he could betroth her again, but he cannot sell her. So it's nothing to do with the subject of yud, a regular Kiddushin. And now the Gemara says, how can I say such a pshat that pure taliso means Kiddushin? You know, it fits into the words that he says over here, taliso, about garment, and he means he gave her over to somebody who's going to be chayiv in she'era ksusa v'onasa, which means after the nisuin. Means really by Erison he's not chayiv in these things. She'era means she'era means mazonos, ksus means garments, ona means marital relations. So even though she's not the pure talisa doesn't mean ona, it doesn't mean ksus, but it means he gave it over to somebody in Kiddushin and Erison to somebody who eventually is going to become chayiv. So the Gemara here has to excuse itself that the word pure taliso could mean only Erison. And the word talis, the Mefarshim say that talis is referring to the ksus. He's chayiv to give her garments. He's chayiv to give her whatever garment she needs. That's called pure talisa. So the Gemara is like saying, I know it doesn't fit well into the words, but I could fit it in, b'dochak, I could squeeze it in, and therefore it's not approved to our subject. Yud, I still don't know what it does. Kiddushin, the Bryce that's talking about Kiddushin, pure talisa means that he betrothed her to somebody. She'era, this is a pasuk. She'era ksusabo no salo yigra. She'era means mazonos. They say one shot. Ksus means garments. He has to give her clothing. Ona means she has to have marital relations. So the Gemara rejected the proof. Back to the question again. We want to know if Yud accomplishes only Erison or even Suin. The Gemara thought had a right from here that it's talking about Erison. The Gemara rejects the proof. You don't know. Tashma, another proof. We'll try again. There's a man allowed to sell his daughter to a relative as a maidservant. What's the problem? Because there's no option of marrying her. Usually the Torah gives an option of marrying her to him or to a son, and by a relative, there's no such option. It's not going to disturb us. Is it going to say that since you don't have the option of marrying her, so therefore you can't have a sale at all? Tanakama says you have to have the option. You can't sell a daughter to a relative because you don't have the option of marrying her, and therefore you can't even sell her. She's not even a sale. But there's no problem. He may, even though of course he can't do marriage, but she can be a maidservant by a brother, even though he can't marry her. This brother, yeah, somebody that it's not his brother. She could. Okay, Fishavin. Then the Brisa continues. Fishavin shemocha umanu lekohen gadol, grusha v'chlusa lekohen hedyot. Even though, according to the Tanakama, you can't sell a daughter as a maidservant to a relative, but because she's not allowed to marry. But there are some marriages that you're not allowed to, but it's not so terrible. It's not chayve krisus, it's only chayve 11. So he's allowed to sell her. He's allowed to sell her to if she's an almana. If the young daughter that he's selling is already a widow, we have to go back there and see her history. How does she become a widow? That his daughter is a widow and he wants to sell her to a kohen gadol who's not allowed to marry her, because the kohen gadol is not allowed to marry an almana. That's not such a big avera. I mean, of course, he's not going to marry her, but it's not called that. It's not roy for marriage, because if you marry her, it will take effect. Just is not allowed to. So that is not a problem that is called she's not roy to marry. She's roy to marry. She's just not allowed to. So he could sell her to as a maidservant, and then he won't marry her. And also grusha v'chlusa lekohen hedyot, even though his daughter is a grusha, his young daughter is a grusha, he could sell her to a kohen hedyot, even though he's not allowed to marry her, because it's not a chayve krisus, it's only chayve lav. So we had this is information on its own. Machlokas, if you're allowed to sell a daughter to a relative, machlokas, and even the one who says you may not, but he could only if it's chayve krisus. But if it's chayve lav, and he may. The Gemara is not going to go on the main subject of the Brisa. It's going to go on one point. It talks about this young daughter that he wants to sell as an almana. How did that happen? What's the rekka? What happened? How did she become an almana? Young daughter, she's already an almana.
Sounds like she was the soon.
It could be an almana from Erison also. That wouldn't be a problem.
Can you? That's not a full man.
His kohen gadol is not allowed to marry an almana from Erison either.
Oh, he's not.
He's not allowed to marry an almana from Erison either. So, but how did she become an almana over here? Almana the kohen gadol. How did she become an almana? Is there a possibility that she married herself off? Elaine with the Kaddish Nafsha, she married herself off. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as a girl, young, kind of marrying herself off. Almana Karila, she's called a widow. That the kohen gadol is not allowed to marry her. There was nothing. If a girl marries herself off as a ketana, even if with Rabbanan they didn't invent such a thing, Kiddushin ketana, that the brother, the mother, herself, they could make Kiddushin Rabbanan if the father died. but it's not a real Kiddushin, it's not real marriage. She wouldn't be called an almana if the husband died. And as long as the father's around, then it's mamish nothing. She has no jurisdiction over herself. She wouldn't be called an almana.
Maybe she's already
I'm not following. We're talking about is he allowed to sell his daughter the almana to a kohen gadol? That's the question. She's an almana, and now she's already an almana, and now he wants to sell it to a kohen gadol. So it talks about if he could, if he can't. But we're talking about the situation of an almana, a ktana, who's an almana, that his father wants to sell her to a kohen gadol. What's the case? How did she become an almana? She married herself off and her husband died. She can marry herself off. She never was married. She's not called an almana.
And the father, if it was in the suing, can't marry her off either.
That's also true. So we're talking about that as only it was Erison.
No, only then Erison.
Okay.
And
Ella the
then
kid.
husband. And then the Meyuad, the husband died.
Ella the kid Sha'aviha. Must be that the father married her off. Me Matzi Mazbullah. But in other words, the Shifra Sacharishas. We on top of the page, Machlokis, if a man could sell his daughter after he already had betrothed her. We had a Machlokis, but the Gemara seems to be going according to the Mandamar of Akiva that says he may not. The big door means beged, and we said that it means Kiddushin, Erison. So once he married her, he betrothed her to somebody, he cannot sell her. So that doesn't make sense. We're in a pickle. Because here it says that she's an almana. The only way she could be an almana was if she was betrothed by her father. And then what's he doing selling her again? It talks about a kohen gadol, and not a kohen gadol. He could sell her too. He can't sell her at all because according to Akiva, once he betrothed her to somebody, and then he died, whatever. So he can't sell her. So the price doesn't make sense that it says an almana you can't sell. You could or can't sell to a kohen gadol. How could you sell her to anybody after she was betrothed? Because of Akiva holds the Vigdoba that once someone was did the Erison, once the father betrothed her to somebody, he may not sell her anymore. So the price doesn't make sense.
Same question would apply to Grusha, no?
What?
Same question would apply to Grusha.
Yes. But she has right. Yeah, right. Almana Grusha. That how could she be married? Almana Grusha because she was married. How was she married? The father betrothed her, so then he has no business selling her to anybody.
Even though she's Ketana.
Even though she's a Ketana. Because this whole once she's a Gedola, then surely he can't sell her. The whole issue of that he can't sell her once he was boged, whatever the word boged means, beged, boged, whatever it means. So we're talking about she's still a Ketana, and usually a father could sell her, but in this instance, since something went wrong, or he did something already, so he can't sell her. So this girl, if he had betrothed her to somebody, and then he died or divorced her, so the father is not allowed to sell her now.
Mhm.
So what's it talking about? He could sell it. He could sell it to a kohen gadol. He can't sell it to anybody.
We don't have a case.
Right,
There's no way that she could have been an almana.
right. It must be. We're still in the middle of it. We didn't finish yet. It must be. Dam Rav Amar Mam Rav Yitzchak Kocha b'Kiddusha Yid. Baliba de Rav Yosef Rav Yehuda Dam Amos Mishon Oslav b'Kiddusha Nitni. So Rav Amar and Rav Yitzchak has a pshat. The case was how did she become an almana? Because the father had sold her. Not that the father had betrothed her. The father had sold her. So after being sold, she's not almana. Even if the master is going to die, she's not almana. We have to get her to be an almana. The father betrothed her. Sold her. And the master did yiyud.
Which now we're going to see.
I will figure out.
Okay.
And then he died or divorced her. And now the father still has jurisdiction because he's allowed to sell her after he sold her. It means that was Machlokes also.
Yeah.
That was about Akiva. Akiva holds that he just cannot sell her after he betrothed her, but he could sell her after he sold her. So it must be that that's the case. How did she become an almana? Because the father had sold her and the master had done yiyud, and then he divorced her or died, and now the father could sell her again. Now, what does that yiyud accomplish? If the yiyud means that even if he actually took her as nesuin, then it's no question that the father's out. Once she had nesuin, the father's out of the picture.
Mhm.
So you have to say that the yiyud did not accomplish nesuin. Don't you see that the yiyud erison that the yiyud only accomplished erisons? Now you have a case of an almana. How did she become an almana? The father sold her. The master did yiyud, and then he died or divorced her. And now the father wants to sell her again.
And again.
So you have a raya, and I'm
assuming.
the Nesuin also finish in this. But if the year accomplishes Nesuin, then he wouldn't be able to have jurisdiction over her. So now I skipped a couple of lines I didn't explain. So the Gemara throws in something else also. It's called Rabbi Yitzchak said it's talking about Kiddusha Yiyud, but the Gemara sticks in has to go according to Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda that says Moisa Rishonos Lav Kiddushin Nitnu. That the original money was not given for Kiddushin. And this goes back to what Dr. Fine brought up, that when he's Mekadosh her, when he's Mayayid her, he says, Avayat Miyad Asli, Bekesef Miknasayah. That's what Rashi told us before. But here the Gemara says we can't go according to that Mandi Amar. We have to go according to the Mandi Amar that the original money that he bought her with is not Kiddushin money. Means we're saying that as a machlokes. But Dr. Fine brought up that with what money does the master marry the maid servant? Is it with the original money that the father had paid for, that the master had paid for when he bought her? And now he says that money that I paid, I want it to be Kesef Kiddushin, or it was Kesef Kiddushin, and now I'm taking you as a wife. So Rabbi Yosef Yehuda says not. Moshe Rishono Slav the Kiddushin. The original money was not given for Kiddushin. So now he has to marry her with more money, whatever. We'll see later on what the other choice is going to be. But with the work that she still has left to do for him, and that's the money. Why does the Gemara throw this in? Why does the Gemara have to say it's dependent where the Kiddushin money is? So Rashi, I think, explains that there's another problem over here. Because if the marriage takes place with the money that the father had gotten by original sale, that's also called that the father betrothed her. Is that true? I think that's what Rashi says.
Most Rishonos is Kiddushin, so she only had Kiddushin.
So even though it wasn't Kiddushin until now that the husband says so, that's still called that the father had given her for, let's see where Rashi says that. Not listening to me. Too much. The Ein Kiddushin Ein Al Yidei Ha'av. But there's a possible Bushi Kiddushin Hilka Chada Matzi Lizvuna. The reason why the Gemara is bringing in this sheet of Rabbi Yehuda that the original money is not, it's the money that's being done now, is because the father doesn't do this Kiddushin. If the Kiddushin money is the original money that the father accepted, that's called that the father did it. The father also is if he betrothed his daughter. When the master is taking her
The master
for
marries
years,
her with that money.
money. So that's as if the father
father
had sold this, father betrothed her. So then he's not allowed to sell her anymore. But if she's the one who's now giving the money, so to speak, getting the money, that the master says that whatever work you have left to do for me, I'm marrying you with that money. So then she's the one who's marrying. The father didn't marry her; she married herself off. So the Gemara thinks that this is an essential factor to say the pshat. The reason why the father would be allowed to sell her after he had sold her, the reason why the father would be allowed to sell her now, after he already had sold her, and the master betrothed her, or did yield, is because the father didn't do that. It's happening now. And the Gemara's question is, but is it considered Nesuin or Erison? It must be considered Erison, because if it would be considered Nesuin, then the father would be out and he wouldn't be able to marry, wouldn't be able
What do
to
we care about if the father's money? What if the father sold her
sold her.
and then the guy said, "Hurry up, Kodesh, leave with my own money." So
Not with the original money.
not with the original money.
So that's what the Gemara is saying, more or less. That's what the Gemara is saying, that the original
And then
money.
for sure the father couldn't sell her again anyway. She's a married woman now.
No, of course, it's talking about that he divorced her afterwards. All these cases of
Uh-huh.
selling her after she's married means that the husband divorced her or died. All these issues we talk about, that any possibility of the father selling her after she was married, betrothed, is only if he divorced her.
Not understanding why we care if it was the father's money.
Did the
Either
father
way,
betroth her?
it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
That's not always not going to work.
Once she's married, it's a done deal. He's out. Whether
What does
the guy
married? What does
dies,
married mean? What does married mean? The suing, not the
it's a misui.
So
It
there's
doesn't
no.
matter whose money it was.
So there's
It
no
doesn't
misui.
matter if he dies or
Yes, yes. So
divorces her.
there's no nisuin. The Gemara is saying there's no nisuin.
So
Here-
then why are we bringing in this thing about the father's money?
Because if it would have been the father's money, then also he wouldn't be able to betroth her, even though it's only Erison. Even though it's only Erison,
Oh, even Harrison, he can,
because
because
going
the
now
father's
that is
money.
because he cannot sell her after he betrothed her,
Okay,
and that's called that he betrothed her also. Even though it went through a sale, but after the sale there was a betrothal over there of the
Yeah.
of the master. So that's also called that the father betrothed her. And Rabbi
Oh,
Akiva
so we're
holds
trying
that
to prove that it
we
wasn't.
have to get out of that problem that it shouldn't be a betrothal that father did.
Okay.
So that's how the Gemara sets up the proof. So it must be that that the Yid only accomplished Erison and didn't accomplish Nisuin.
That's a fact, correct?
What's the fact?
The retroactive changing of the initial sale can't be made into Kiddushin money. Otherwise, people can go around doing Kiddushin on people, couldn't they?
Which retroactive? Oh no, only over here by this
Because
maidservant.
it's a father.
But a maidservant that originally when he sold her, he sold his daughter, so it's already with the option of being able to marry her. So then the question is,
No. So he's got the option to marry. I'm saying that initial sale, that money that he received, saying I'm selling you my daughter.
and now
The master can't do anything to change that into being Kiddushin money.
he could.
can.
I mean, why not? Because that was the whole deal. The deal was it wasn't a regular sale. Every sale of a daughter always includes the next, next sif, the next paragraph.
Fine,
That part of it is that if the master wishes, he may marry her,
Okay.
or him or her son. That's what the Torah talks about. So every sale of a daughter always includes the option of marrying her. So the question is that the money already was given for that possible, the money that the buyer is giving for the sale of the maidservant already includes that if I want to marry her, I could marry her. The money that's what the Gemara talks about. And Rashi before said that's what happens. I read the sleep because of the Nasayach. He hereby married to me with the money that I paid for a year ago. And Rabbi Yosef says no, that money is not Kiddushin money. That wasn't given for Kiddushin. It was just a regular sale. And now, of course, he has option to marry her, but he has to marry her with a new money. And what's the new money? That he tells her whatever's left of your work that you didn't work yet, it's still within the term of her work. So now I'm marrying you and you don't work anymore. That money's yours. That you don't have to work anymore. So that's what he's giving her now. And the Gemara makes
That's
that
like
you need
his
that.
money.
What? It's like his money. It's like he's giving her money.
It was why did it say Lav Kedushin? Why didn't it say Erusin too?
Kiddushin and Erusin is the same word. There's no difference between Kiddushin and Erusin.
And this because I see Kedushin doesn't mean Erusin.
Right. Kiddushin means Erusin.
Someone do that with them? Let's say modern day wedding that lent somebody $1,000 during the initial lending of the money. Wrote, if later on would get married, I'll use that money from before.
So the one I had before about lending money means once you lend somebody money, so the money belongs to the borrower, and you don't have any money by him. He owes you money, so you can't. That wouldn't be good. But if you give a pikadon, let's say, the Gemara says it is good. If you give a pikadon, what you should watch something to your custodian, and then a year later he says, you have my thing, it's yours, and that should be marriage. That's good. That's good. So where are we holding? Okay, so the one thing is at this point that it's a good proof that it's only accomplished Erusin, the fact that it's possible to have an almana who could be sold. The chayvin came out that it was yid, that it was sold for a shifcha, and then there was yid, and the yid must be only Erusin. If it would have been a sunnah, then he couldn't sell to anybody. But the Gemara says you're wrong, and the Gemara is going to say it in a lot of words. But the Gemara is, let's see the Gemara's words. Elamai, Erisanos, you're happy to say the Brisa holds Erisanos and everything's good. That the father could then sell her, but he could sell her even though she's an almana. Veshav and Shemochra, the Mochra is Pito, the Shifras Acharishus. How can he sell her? She was already married. It means let's ask the original kasha over again, and that's what we're going to explain what Rashi would have explained before already. How could he sell her? She was already an almana, means she was married already. This whole point we said about Rabbi Yehuda that the father's original money was not the Kiddushin. If that would have been the original Kiddushin, the original money would have been the Kiddushin, so then it's called that the father was the one who did it, and he wouldn't be able to sell her after he married her. But so therefore, you're going to see, that's what you're going to say. There's a difference if the father had married her off, had betrothed her to somebody, or if she betrothed herself to somebody. That's what the Gemara wanted, that the original money that the buyer paid for is not the Kiddushin. That would have been that the father accepted the money, and he's the one who married her off. So you can't sell her for a shifcha anymore. So the Gemara's answer for that was that money is not the Kiddushin money, it's the money that the master is going to give to the daughter now, to the girl, and that's called that she married herself off. So then the father still could sell her for a shifcha.
He has the right to do that.
yud. There's a thing called yud, and yud means either that the two choices are either that the original money is the Kiddushin money, or that whatever's left of her work is going to be the Kiddushin money. And the Gemara is saying that we're happy if the money left over that she didn't work yet, that's the Kiddushin money. So the father didn't do that. That means that she's doing it, and therefore the father still has the jurisdiction to sell her if the husband's going to divorce her or die. But now so the Gemara wants to suggest here's where the real point starts. Till now was just introduction. Afilu temin nesuin osa shani nesuin dida nesuin davia. The Gemara suggests that it is not a proof if Eris Osa or Nesuin Osa, because even if Yud accomplishes Nesuin, but she's the one who's doing it. Let's try again. There's an almana that the father's allowed to sell. That's all. That's what we're looking for. In short, we're looking for an almana that the father could sell. How could the father sell an almana if the first time around it means he married her off? So he can. So she can't sell it. That's what according to Akiva, that once he betrothed her, he cannot marry her, he cannot sell her. So you want to. So the Gemara saying, I'll tell you how. He Taka sold her the first time he sold her, and he could sell her a second time. What's the problem? That someone did yud on the husband did yud on the way, and yud is nesuin, but she's the one who offered herself for nesuin. That's not the father doing anymore. The Gemara is saying that you mistake that it's true that that nesuin would have taken his jurisdiction off, but the Gemara thinks that the jurisdiction only if the father's the one who made her nesua, but if she made herself to be a nesua, that the Gemara said, okay, the father didn't do anything.
Not selling her work.
What?
Him buying up.
He could still.
Work, future work.
That's for the even if you say that accomplishes nesuin.
Oh, okay.
The Gemara wants to knock off the whole proof. He wanted to prove from all this that the yid only accomplished everything, or else the father would have been out. The Gemara says maybe there's a difference. Who did the nesuin? It really accomplishes nesuin, but that's under her knowledge and confirmation. She's doing it. She's agreeing to it. So maybe if she's the one who's doing the nesuin, the father still has jurisdiction over her if the husband's going to die. So the Gemara is asking, you have no proof. You think that if the yid would have accomplished nesuin, then the father would be out, he would be able to sell her. No, maybe only if the father's the one who did the nesuin. But if the girl herself is the one who accepted the nesuin, so then maybe the father does have jurisdiction over her. But the Gemara says this is not true. Maybe everyone's thinking of this. Hi, my, what's the comparison? Bishlam, Eris, and Shani. There's a difference between if the father's the one who betrothed her or she's the one who betrothed herself. Ela nesuin, top of the page, me Shani. Is there a difference? Who made the nesuin? So the explanation is pretty simple, I think. By Erison, the question is, that's called Vigdoba, that once the father betrothed her to somebody, he's not allowed to sell her for a shifcha anymore. That's because who did it? And there you can say, if she's the one who did the Erison, so then the father didn't do anything, so then he's allowed to sell her. But the nesuin has nothing to do with who did it. The nesuin has to do with her status. Her status of a nesuin is already out of the jurisdiction of the father. Mm-hmm. So if it would have accomplished nesuin, the father taka would be out. So the Gemara at this point, the top line, the Gemara at this point is happy with the proof that only accomplishes everything, because it wouldn't be able to find a case of an almana that the father could sell. It's just to shorten it, condensed, that the proof is because it says in the Bryce something about the father selling his daughter who's an almana. That can't be that he betrothed her, because then he wouldn't be able to go in corner of Bakiva, that he's not able to betroth her to sell her after he betrothed her. It must be he only sold her, and he could betroth her after. He could sell her after having betrothed her, after having sold her.
But how did she become an almana?
But how did she become an almana? Just being a shifcha that her master does make an almana. There has to have been some marriage over there. What kind of marriage? Yid. But the yid has to only have accomplished everything. Then the father could still have jurisdiction over her. But if it would have accomplished the suing, the father would have been out of the picture.
Because the person didn't nullify his say.
He just sold her. He sold her. Now he can sell her again. In between, she had Erison to the master, but he didn't do that. She did it. So the Gemara has a good proof. But now the Gemara is saying
Erison doesn't nullify his right to sell her.
Right. Only the Suman does. So the Gemara is happy that the yid only accomplishes Erison. But this only is built on of Nachman by Yitzchak. On the other, we said that the girl is the one who's doing everything for herself, not the original money that the father accepted. But some hold that it is the original money. This is what we're getting to the machlokas now. As Rashi told us, there's such a man dama that it's the original money. But we said before that the Beis Yehuda holds that it's not the original money that the father gave. We'll see it later on the page. That he holds that no, everybody holds that it's the original money that the father gave. That's the Kiddushin. So we're back to square one. That the whole shot was only based on this possibility that the father didn't marry her was not part of the betrothal, and therefore he could sell her. But according to Rav Nachman Yitzchak, even if he sold her, and then there was a yiyud, that's called that the father did it, and he wouldn't be allowed to sell her anymore. But my mukim la, how is he going to say this brisa? How is it possible for a father to sell his daughter an almana? The answer is mukim la kirab eliezer dam l'shif pasach hashif pasud l'mazi mazben lo aval l'shif pasach harishus mazi mazben lo. As we started, the whole Gemara is only based on the assumption that the brisa is going to Akiva, that he cannot sell her after having betrothed her. He only can sell her after having sold her. But according to Rabbi Lezer, he holds the opposite, that he cannot sell her after having sold her, but he could sell her after having betrothed her. Then everything's simple. The price is not simple. How do you have a sale after an almana? According to Rabbi Lezer, everything's simple. That he's allowed to betroth her, and after she gets divorced or widowed, he could sell her. So then the price is simple. There's no problem to get an almana. How he's selling an almana. The whole problem was based on our understanding going according to Rabbi Kiva. They just told that he cannot. It has to be only after a sale, not after a betrothal. So the whole cheshbon is only built on one assumption. But Rav Nachman Yitzchak is going to say that it said is no raya. The words inside, the kasha was according to Rav Nachman Yitzchak that says that even the case of a yiyud is also going to be that the father did it, and then he wouldn't be able to sell her anymore. But my mukim, how is he going to explain the brisa? The answer is mukim. He's going to say the brisa will according to Rabbi Lezer, not according to Rabbi Kiva, that it says dama he can't sell her for a maidservant 2 times. He could sell her after he had betrothed her, so no problem. That's simple. How do you have a sale after being an almana? The father betrothed her to somebody. He died, and now he wants to sell her, and he may. And that the brisa says, how about to a kohen gadol? So there's no proof. We finish the sugya. The sugya is over. Should be 2 dots over here, and the sugya is over. That the question was there is a nose and a sunos, and there is no proof. The Gemara had 2 proofs to try to show that it's only Erison, but the Gemara rejects both proofs, so we don't know. New sugya, easier sugya, starts in the beginning. Chumash, we're learning Chumash. Back to the Parshas Mishpatim. It says that a person has the option of marrying her, the one who buys the maidservant has the option of marrying her himself, or marrying her to his son. So what if the son is a katan? Is there such a thing as a katan having a wife? As far as we know, there's no such thing. You have to be a father can marry off his daughter. A father who's a katana. A father cannot marry off his son. The sons are on their own. So as long as he's a katan, he has no das. He has to have das in order to marry. So usually you don't find such a thing as a katan marrying. But here the pasuk says that the father could take this maidservant to be his son's wife, maybe even a katan. A fascinating finish. There'll be a case of a katan being married. And what's the question? It says in the pasuk beno, no yadana, beno amrachmana, beno koldu, oduma beno damididei, mahu goda lafu beno goda. How do you use the word beno? It says if he designates her, if he marries her to his son, any son, beno koldu, any kind of son, it's a son, no strings attached. If it's a son, he's allowed to take the maidservant to be a wife of his son, and she's married. The Raisa, Oduma, beno says his son. His son means similar to him. It says he could take her as a wife, or a son, give her to a son as a wife. But it has to be similar to him, just like he's a gadol, and the son also is only a gadol. So that's the question. You learn the chumash and you have a din of yud. Is it only an adult son or even a minor son? I'm Rab Zera. Being a proof, Tashma, ish, prat katan, ashayinaf ashayisis. The pasuk is, if we let's skip the pshat, the interjection, the word, the pasuk goes like this: ish ashayinaf ashayisis ish. A man who commits adultery with a married woman. And the Brisa says about this pasuk, ish pratakatan, only a man. It means that's the one who's going to be chayv misa for committing adultery with a married woman is only if he's an adult. If he's a katan, so then he's not chayv misa for doing avei of znus. And also the man who is a gadol, only if he has adultery with a married woman to a man, eshes ish. We're emphasizing the second ish, that she has to be an eshes ish. She has to be the wife of a man. What kind of man? If a woman is married to a katan and someone is going to commit adultery with her, he's not chayiv misa. Again, the din, the halacha that if someone's not allowed to have relations with a married woman is only if she's married to an adult. If she's married to a minor, there's no chayiv misa. But it sounds, that's what the Gemara wants to look for. The Gemara thinks, why not? Because no such thing as being married to a katan. Doesn't exist. A katan can't marry. He has to be 13 years, he has to be an adult in order to marry. But now you're telling me that there is such an invention on the tzad that even a beno katan can do yid. So the Torah does recognize such a thing as a minor husband. He's married. How did he get married? Because his wife was a Amavriya, that the father married, his father married her to him, and he's a katan. If you say that it's possible for a katan to be miyayed and came, the father able to miyayed to beno katan and came, but he reaches the katan. So there is such a thing as a katan married. So why does the pasuk say that there's no chiyuv misa? She's a married woman, and they committed adultery with a married woman. So the Gemara says the opposite. On the contrary, you think that there's no such thing as a katan marrying? You don't need a pasuk. You don't need a pasuk to say that there's no chiyuv marrying, committing adultery with a woman married to a katan. There's no such thing as a woman married to a katan. So on the contrary, you wouldn't need a pasuk for it. So therefore, the more things on the contrary, it's a proof the other way that there is such a thing as a married katan who's married, and the pasuk says there's no chiyuv misa for such an adultery. But if there's, so on the contrary, you see there is such a thing. On the contrary, we bring a proof from here that there is such a thing as a katan who's miyad. Also, we know such a case of married to a katan. So bring a proof that a father could be miyad the amavriya to his minor son. I could give another case. You want to know a case of a married katan? Even if it's not this case, there's another case. That's the case of Yibum, that somebody died without children, and he has a young brother, who's a katan, and the katan did Yibum, and over there it is a marriage with a raisa. Even though katan on his own cannot marry, but this is already together with a zikra of Yibum. So then if he has relations with his sister-in-law, they are married. Now if somebody comes, and now someone's going to commit adultery with that woman, it's also because she's a married woman, but it's not going to be chayv misa because it's not a married to an adult, only to a minor. So you might think that if someone's going to have a marriage with a and his bia is a bia, who's that? The katan. He's a ben tesha. He's 9 years old, so it's called a bia. So the person who is going to have relations with is going to be chayv ve'ishes. Kamash malon, that it's not chayv ve'ishes. So what happened? The Gemara tried to bring a raya that there's such a thing as a marriage to a katan. That's what it says. There's such a thing as a marriage to a woman being married to a katan. There must be yid. So you see yid still no katan. The Gemara rejects it. It's not a proof because there is another one. Everybody holds up by yibum. If there'd be a case of yibum to a katan, it is a marriage. So the pasuk is not a raya that this is the only one. The Gemara says it's such a case. There's a Eishes katan. There is such a thing with the raisa. So it's not a proof that it's this one. It could be, but not necessarily because there is such a thing as a Eishes yavam. So that was the question. We're still on, so we don't have a raya yet. So we're on to look at my Haviyallah. What's going to be about this? Means, do you have any proof about yid to a minor son? Is this such a thing? Period. Really, we could stop here. End of the sugya. We're going to go further. But as far as the proof of the question and the answer, this is the answer. And the rest of the page is going to be another subject. But it's the middle of Rabbi talking. But as far as our question, the answer is those words, and there's no proof, no Mishnah, no Brisa, no Pasuk, no that Rabbi said so. He doesn't say how you know. Maybe I didn't realize he is going to explain. It is going to, not to make whole parentheses out of it. We're going to see that it is going to explain how he gets it from. But the answer is no. There's no such thing as a yid to a katan. And he also says another thing, that the yid only can be with knowledge. It means that the husband, the one who's doing the yid, has to knowledgeably do the yid. And the Gemara says that's saying the same thing twice. The Gemara is going to say soon how you know that. How you know you have to have das. But once you know you have to have das, then you have to have a godel because the katan is not called a bar das. And that's what the Gemara, that was a very nice statement. Now the Gemara asks, Tarti, he said two things that are repetitious. Because if he said das, that automatically the katan is no good because the katan has no das. The Gemara answers, you're right. It's only saying one thing. Matan kama. It's coming to explain the reason. How come a godel is all? He said that he doesn't say a reason. It's not a pasuk, not a mishnah, but he says the reason. You know why he has to be a gadol in order to do yud? If he midas, because you have to do it with knowledge, and the katan doesn't have knowledge. So that's his reason. So we found out the reason. Another possibility to explain his words that Itaka meant two things, not the same thing. We still could say that the reason is because he has to have das, but the Gemara says he's really saying something else. Midas nida, that she has to agree, the woman has to agree. The year has to be with her consent. The father could sell her against her consent, but the year has to be only if she agrees. Tani Abaye, Brei Rabbi Yabo, Ashalo Yada, they changed this word. They changed this word. It's a mistake the way it's written. It should be Lamed Yud Dalet Ayin Hey. The Ayin Dalet are got mixed up. It's a drash, of course. The Pashpasha says Ashalo Yada Ayin Dalet Yud Ayin Dalet, but we're going to dash in Yud Dalet Ayin that he has to inform her. Tzarech Liyada. That's the reason how you know that the woman has to have consent. Has to have her consent. He has to inform her. He has to have das. So the Gemara says two things. It has to be the husband has to have das. Maybe also from the word maybe, and that the Gemara doesn't say, but you have to have das, and therefore godel is not good. And the answer to our question is that a godel is not good. That a katan is not good. If the son is a katan, the father can't do yield. Can't tell him to do yield. The second point we learn now, a possibility that also you have to inform her. You have to have her consent, and that's going to be from the drasha liyada to give her the information. They make her das. Now the Gemara explains that does she have to consent? So the Gemara says maybe only according to Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara goes back to what we spoke about before. Where's the Kiddushin money? When the master is going to be miyai, no difference the son or the father anymore. But where's the Kiddushin money? So the Gemara is going to say it depends if it's the original money or if it's the money that she's going to now benefit that she doesn't have to work anymore, the future money. So to say that she has to accept consent is only according to Rabbi Yehuda that says more we shall stop the Kiddushin that it's not the original money. Now it's the money. So if it's now it's the money that she's going to stop working, that's her consent. That's her decision. So she has to consent. But if it's the father's money that the father accepted when he sold her, so that's already done deal. And you don't need her consent anymore. The father sold her, the father married her off. If Nachman Yitzchak says that you don't have to say that, even if it's the original money, and according to the cheshbon, the father already accepted the money, so she's married if she likes it or not. But the pasuk says so. It's exeris hakasem that she has to consent. So no proof. Now the Gemara goes back to this thing that we said a couple of times. Rabbi Yehuda, is the original money? Is it the money now? So this is now we're going to get to the shorish of the whole business. My basic Rabbi Yehuda. Where do we find the basic Yehuda saying about it's the money that she's going to get? Titania. Ya'ada be'efda. The pasuk says Ashalo Ya'ada be'efda, that he marries her and he redeems her. It really is two different things. One is hefda, that means that he does not marry her, and he lets her be redeemed, that they pay him for the money that she didn't work yet, then she goes free. But it's going to be a drasha now. How come? Here it is. Yeah. When he wants to marry her, so if he does it when she's 8, 9, 10, 11, everything's fine. Once it comes that she's almost going free, either because it's coming the 12th birthday with the Shtei Saras, or it's 6 years almost over, or Yovel's almost over. So then he says there has to be enough time left in the day, a Shavar Pruta of work left. That means that it's not the money that the father received when he sold her, because he wants there should be money left. That means that he's marrying her with the money that's left. So if there's the Shavar Pruta left of her work that she owes him, so he's marrying her with that money. But if there's not any time left, there's no Shavar Pruta, so he didn't give her anything. This is the famous Rabbi Yehuda quoted a couple of times. If there's enough time in the day left that she still would work a Shavar Pruta is worth, so then she's married, because that's the money, that's a Shavar Pruta. But if there's not any Shavar Pruta left, she's not married. What do you see? So that's what the Gemara derives from, that the Rebbe Yehuda holds that the original money that the father paid is not the Kiddushin, it's the money left that he's going to work with her now. So that's what the Gemara said the whole time. The Rebbe Yehuda holds that it's not the Mois HaRishonos. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Amar, Afilu Teimah Kiddushin Nitnu. Shani Yochad Am Rachman of Hefta. Rav Nachman Yitzchak keeps on saying that it's not a proof. Even he's the one who was quoted that no, even according to Rebbe Yehuda, it's the original money. If it's the original money, why do you have to have a Shavar Pruta left? He makes exeris because you don't have to have the logic and say that this is the Kiddushin. The Kiddushin money is really the original Kiddushin money. And this exeris kasav, you have to have her das. This exeris kasav has to be a shabbat. But don't learn from there. Yeah, you have a lot of factors that all sound like it's the Kiddushin money is happening now, but it's not a proof. He says even according to Rabbi Yosef, that's original money, that's the Kiddushin money, and there's exeris kasav that she has to consent. There's exeris kasav that there has to be a shabbat left, but it's not a proof to which Kiddushin is happening. And before the Gemara spoke about this point, is she marrying herself off? Is the father marrying her off? The Gemara brought this in also on top of the page. We can go, even though there's a two dots, we can go another couple of lines.
What's the half dot at the end there?
That was the pasuk which is quoted 2 lines before it
What's
spreads.
doing with it?
Yadav v'efda. This was the drush here. 2 lines before it spreads. Yadav v'efda. Ashalo yadav v'efda. That's a pasuk. And the more dashing from there that you have to have kedei pidya. That the yield, when he does yield, he has to have left over. Has to have been left over in her money amount that
And now we're saying, so when we're saying that even though this is Kiddushin,
even though the Kiddushin was the original money, and he's not being Mekadosh with the money left over.
here it's different because
Because the pasuk says it was exeris kasav. The Gemara is trying to say, does exeris kasav teach us the mechanics, or it doesn't teach us anything? The first one, the Gemara thought, if you have to have kedei b'diah left over, if you have to have money left, of worth left over, it must be because the mechanics are working that he's marrying her with the money left. That's the Kiddushin money, not the original father money. The money the father got, that's not the Kiddushin money. This is the Kiddushin money.
Yeah.
That was the Gemara's first take on it. But Nachum Yitzchak says no. The money Kiddushin is the original money Kiddushin.
yeah.
So what do you have to have a Shabbat Kuta left? Exeris kasav, the pasuk says so.
Okay.
Yadav v'efda. We could learn just a couple of lines more, or we could not. Okay, we'll stop here. Up to the 2 dots.